And full transparency, Leah's grandson plays for my AAU baseball team, the Pittsburgh Avengers, and he's Dwayne is one heck of a third baseman. He has a really bright future. I did want to give him a quick shout out.
Thank you.
Xander.
Hi, my name is Xander Orenstein. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the Democratic nominee for Magisterial District 5310, which includes Lawrenceville, Polish Hill, and Bloomfield. Really happy to be here. And I'd like to thank One Hood Power and One Hood Media for setting up these election series. They're just very, very important.
Thank you so much, Xander. So we're gonna start off with our first question, and I guess we'll go in reverse order. We'll go Xander, Leah, then Holly. And so tell us what you currently do and what are you most proud of professionally?
Sure. So initially, I still am a scientist. I worked in biology and chemistry since I was 15, doing drug development and all sorts of bioorganic stuff that make most people sort of glaze over at the eyes. In terms of what I'm most proud of professionally, I try not to think about, things I am proud of too much, because that kind of idea makes me sort of, say, well, I already did this thing, so, I can sort of rest on those laurels. I always like to, not get too tied up in pride and just keep moving forward thinking it's like, well, assuming I've done nothing of worth so far, how can I really make that mark? How can I really do better? So yeah, that's my answer for what I'm proud of professionally.
Thank you, Leah.
So currently I am an attorney with the Allegheny County Law Department, and that might sound different from what I said throughout my campaign, because for the last 20 years, I was a hearing officer in the family division. I conducted child support, family support hearings, civil and criminal contempt hearings. And I absolutely loved my job for 20 years, but kind of bittersweet as a result of winning the primary, I had to step down from that position. So now, as an attorney with the law department, I represent custodial parents in support matters. And I also represent the hospitals and the petitioners in mental health hearings, which is something that I've never done before in my 25 years of being an attorney. So I'm grateful for this new experience that I'm picking up, and I'll be able to take into the court as a magisterial district judge.
Thank you. Holly?
Hi, yeah, so I have a master's in public policy, and right now I'm working in the School of Pharmacy at the University of Pittsburgh in a unit that's trying to reduce opioid deaths. And I've been working there for almost a year now, but I've been at Pitt for almost 8 years, and I've been working in community engagement. So I've been helping students and faculty connect with community projects for like volunteerism, activism, public service, research, and all kinds of stuff like that. And what I'm really proud of in my career is, so I'm a connector. I love introducing people. I love convening people. And I really love learning about different people and hearing different stories. And one thing I'm really proud of is early in my career at Pitt, I noticed that there were a lot of students and faculty interested in community engagement, but they weren't necessarily talking to each other. And so myself and some other faculty and staff, as an ad hoc committee, like no one asked us to do it, we started convening a conference just to get everybody talking, like, how do we do this? How do we do this well? How do we listen to the community better? And that developed into, from an ad hoc committee, just like a ragtag group of people who cared, it developed into the Community Engaged Scholarship Forum, which is now like an official Pitt event that brings in, hundreds of people and talking about all different kinds of projects, from like poverty to sustainability to, lots of different kinds of things. So that's one thing that I'm really proud of.
Thank you so much for your answers. And now we know that a little bit about you. I want to talk about the race that you're running. And I think this is kind of like the question that a lot of people want to ask, like, why you, why now? So can you just talk about what's inspired you to run for this position? We'll go Holly, Xander, Leah.
Cool. Yeah. I've been really concerned about criminal justice in our country, the problems that we have, and the ways that we can kind of change it for the better or build new systems that work better for keeping our communities safe and healthy. And I've, in my jobs, I've just been like, okay, how can we reduce mass incarceration? How can we, improve our communities? And I never, honestly, never thought of running for magistrate, but I've read the Abolitionist Law Center reports about just the disparities we have in the Allegheny County Jail and how that boils down to policing, it boils down to magistrates and bias that's in the courts. And when I saw that there was an opening in my district, I was just like, I had to convince myself to do it, but I just really want to see all of our magisterial seats filled with people who are compassionate, people who are patient, people who have the values of reducing incarceration, finding alternative solutions to get at root causes to help our communities be better. And when I didn't see anyone with those values rising up to run, that's how I decided to run. And I'm running as an independent.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's also we'll talk about that later, but it's also very important that this is a conversation with people from various parties, including third and independent parties as well. Xander?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the pandemic, or near the beginning anyway, like many people, I lost my job as a lab technician, and after going home to stay with my mother because my grandfather had died and taking care of her for a bit, I started volunteering, organizing with the Pittsburgh Union of Regional Renters, and I was going around the county helping people to stay in their homes, even if they were at risk of eviction because they lost income in the pandemic. And it was just the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my life. I had the opportunity to speak with a lot of different people from all over the county who are all just trying to get by and survive in this really horrifying time we're living in, where we were never prepared for this. We were never we never expected this kind of thing to happen. And while it's good to try to keep living your life, we have to recognize that we need to make room for each other. We need to make sure that we're looking out for one another right now, because that's what we're supposed to do as people. And in meeting with one of the judges, they recommended that if I really cared about these issues, making sure people had homes, that we were able to come together as a community to work to build solutions, I should run for magistrate. I looked into it. I saw that the incumbent had a very high record of siding with landlords. I think the number is something around 97% of the time over the last 12 years. There was, a lot of truancy cases. Nearly all of them, the truancy case was found to be guilty. Just all of these things where sort of pushing forward the justice and law as written, without a whole lot of room for mercy, compassion. There was a very punitive aspect to justice in these rulings. And I think that mercy and compassion should be at the heart of justice. That the reason we have people from the community as magistrates, that is the one of the few requirements for being a magistrate in Pennsylvania. You need to have lived in the community for over a year. A law degree is not required. We're trained afterwards. We take a month-long course to learn what we need to know. Part of the reason for that is you want somebody who's from the community, who really cares about their neighbor, to find the best solution and not just to dole out punishments. So finding these solutions where everybody is able to work together and grow, as opposed to just sort of keeping things moving along regardless of what happens, is really important to me. The justice system is inherently two-tiered. Those with resources see a far different system than those without. And those without resources often find themselves coming up against these unattended consequences, from when the system was designed for a completely other time. Not all the consequences might have been unintended, but some of them end up really hurting people. And I want to approach justice in a way which keeps this in mind and minimizes the damage that the court has the potential to do.
Thank you. Leah?
Thank you. Miracle, justice for all it seems to be, or has always been my mission, really. And my undergraduate degree from Penn State is in administration of justice. I attended the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. My first job as an attorney was representing parents whose children were removed from their custody by CYF. I represented also those children who were removed from their parents, represent as a conflict counsel youth or juveniles who were, accused or not charged because they're juveniles, but had petitions against them for certain unlawful acts. And my mission has always been justice for all. And like I said, for the last the last 20 years, I served as a hearing officer, actually conducting hearings. And I also served 10 years on a Human Relations Commission. I've just always been about fair and equal justice in my capacity, in a quasi-judicial capacity, ensuring that, everyone who walked into my courtroom had their fair day in court. So when the opportunity arose for me to bring my experience and my passion for justice to my own community, I wanted to jump on it. There's no incumbent in my race. The previous magisterial district judge in my district actually retired. So when I saw the opportunity to bring my skills, my experience to the 26th ward, which is where I grew up in Northview Heights, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there for my community. And also the 27th ward, where I've lived now for the past almost 20 years, and I've raised my children here in the 27th ward. With my skill set and my skill level, my compassion, my commitment, I wanted to bring that from the county level, which is where I served for 20 years, to the magisterial district level, where it was more hands-on, more intimate, and more personal. And just to, partner with some of the community organizations, the community groups, to just make our little corner of the world a little bit better. And then hopefully have that just stretch out, beyond our district to the rest of the county and statewide. But just, I guess it's a long answer now, but short answer would have been justice for all has always been my passion.
Thank you so much for that. And for those who are just joining us again, this is the One Hood Power Hour Magisterial District Judge Candidate Forum. We have Leah Duncan Williams, who's running for magistrate on the north side, Holly Hickling running for magistrate in the West End, and Xander Orenstein running for magistrate in the Lawrenceville area. So our next question is, as you've all have spoken to, a bit about how important this office is, can you just share like a personal tidbit of in your mind, the most important thing or an important thing that the public may not know about this office that you want to share? Because again, so much of what we want these forums to be about is for the public to learn about the candidates running, but also understanding that the public may not always know all the offices that are on the ballot. Can we share something with the viewers about, from your point of view, something that they may not know that's important? And in this round, we'll go Leah, Holly, then Xander.
Thank you, Hilary. You kind of touched upon it in your introduction, that sometimes this office is overlooked, and that's really difficult, because this is our front line. This is the front line of our justice system, and I think what most people don't know is that you'll have so many more people appear before a magisterial district judge than will ever appear in the court of common pleas. And what the magisterial district judge level, what we do at this level is we really would relieve some of the burden that's on our common pleas court and I had to look up some statistics. And what I found was that approximately, I think it was maybe around 3,500 hearings or trials that were actually conducted by judges in the Court of Common Pleas in 2018, and that's the last year for which we have statistics. But in that same year, the magisterial district judges, and there are 46 of them in Allegheny County, processed over almost 253,000 cases. So you have the public's, the chance that you'll go before a magisterial district judge is much greater than our county judges and our other higher level judges. So I think it's really important to understand how important this position is to the community and to people at large. We again, we're the front line. Not only do we relieve the burden from the Common Pleas Court, but we also provide that community access to the members of our own communities, so that they aren't stressed by having to go downtown for everything that they, every time they need a form, or every time they need a question answered, or every time there's a neighborhood dispute, it can be settled or it can be addressed right there in the neighborhood, in a way, that's fair, but that's also done by people who are qualified, who are passionate about what we do, and who just really want the best for our communities. So just, understand that this is a job that touches so many people, and unfortunately, you usually don't know about it until you have to appear before a magisterial district judge. But what we do for the higher courts is just invaluable.
Thank you. Holly?
Thank you for that answer, Leah. I'll try to see what I can add to that. One thing, I'm gonna give two answers. One, I really want to say, one thing I want the public to know is that you can choose your elected officials. And I feel like, especially on my side of town, not everyone, but there's a sense of complacency. There's a sense of, I don't want to say hopelessness, because there's a lot of cool, exciting things happening in this side of town. But I don't think people realize you have the power to change your magisterial district judge. You have the power to change your city council person. And these races can be won and lost by 20 votes, by 100 votes. Like, you can get involved in your neighborhood and change your neighborhood. So that's one thing I want people to know, and about just local elected offices in general. For the magistrate in particular, what I'm realizing as I'm going door to door is that people who have had to see a magistrate for one reason or another are intimately aware of what magistrates do, but a lot of people just aren't aware because they haven't been in front of a magistrate. And if I could, convey one thing about what a magisterial district judge can do, it's the discretion that they have to impose fines and penalties and to forgive fines and penalties. So, for instance, it's still legal. Like, we still have cash bail in Allegheny County, and it's recommended that people don't use it, but people can still use it. And what that does is force people to wait in the county jail who can't afford bail, while people who can afford it get to wait from home. And that is just not fair. The parents of children who are logging in late to school can be fined for that, when the family might already be struggling with something, and what they really need is compassion and support, and not further burden on top of their family. So those are a couple things that I want people to know about what magistrates can do.
Thank you, Holly. Xander?
Yeah, I was going to talk about cash bail as well. Magistrates will have the discretion to set bail, not set cash bail in the initial arraignments in criminal hearings. Very many, criminal cases will initially have the arraignment hearing at the magisterial level, and this will determine whether or not somebody who has not been convicted of a crime goes to jail due to an inability to pay, or are able to continue to go about their lives when they haven't been convicted of anything. There is the purpose of bail, which I think sometimes gets lost in the conversation, is to ensure that the accused shows up for their trial date. So a risk assessment is run to determine whether or not if they are likely to show up or not. It has nothing to do with what they were potentially arrested for, or anything like that. Other than as factors in this risk assessment. So a lot of times people are assigned very high bail that they're unable to afford and have to choose between either going to, say, a bail bondsman who would expect 15-20% of the bail, what the bail was as payment for putting up the money, so that these people can go home, keep their jobs, keep their homes, keep their families, or they could stay in jail for up to months, sometimes even years before their trial. So it's just one example of how what would seem to be small decisions, if not given careful consideration and the context of everything is not considered, could potentially devastate people's lives. These are very big decisions that magistrates are going to have to make, and you want somebody in there who is going to take the proper time and proper care with each individual case, because potentially lives are on the line.
Thank you so much for that answer. And it's kind of roll into my next question. We know currently there are issues in our county. There are literacy issues. There are issues with language barriers, language supports. There are issues around getting ASL interpretation. There's also issues with some magistrate, some people telling people to shoot people, in the courtroom, and, misgendering and all type of stuff going on. So my question is, if you, on November 2nd, you win your election, what are you going to do to make your courtroom more open and welcoming for all? And we'll go Leah, Holly, Xander.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you. One of part of my platform during the primary was, just focused upon that, making the courtroom more accessible. And I think, making my courtroom more accessible, I want to start with the education and engagement, of the community. I proposed quarterly law forums, or maybe even, monthly or bi-monthly law forums, just for that specific purpose, to educate the community about the magisterial district judge, about the position, what goes on in the courtroom, and beyond that, the justice system, or our legal system in general. What happens in criminal court, what happens in civil court, what happens in orphans court, what happens in the family division. I also propose making my court a one-stop legal shop, where, as I said before, instead of having to run downtown for every form or to have every question answered, I envision, a wall, in my courtroom that's just full of pamphlets and instructions of how to navigate our legal system. Reasonable hours. There was a horrible article about the magisterial district judge position, and it was written a few years ago, but it's basically a part-time job. I just say, to make it more accessible, to do the job that we're elected to do in the hours, that we're committed to doing it, just to make sure that we have reasonable hours. I would even propose maybe extended hours, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, so that those people who have, 9 to 5 jobs and can't make it to the court, during those hours, that they would have their opportunity to come to their own neighborhood court to have their needs addressed. So, I think it's, mostly they're practical, common sense solutions that can be put into place, so that the community's needs are being met, until also that the community is engaged, that the community is involved in what's going on, and that the magisterial district judge gets to know the community and to specifically focus on the needs of our own community. I just think, practical, common sense approach, but mostly, do the job that we're elected to do it effectively, do it consistently, and do it, in the hours that we're elected to do it. Thank you.
Holly.
Thank you, Leah. I really love the question. Thank you, Miracle, for the question. Accessibility is very important to me, and something I would be very interested in learning is what magisterial courts right now are creating accessibility for all the different things that you mentioned, Miracle, like in terms of ASL and, you know, people with other kind of accessibility needs, whether it's language or other kinds of things. Like, what is currently going on that's good, and how can we spread that out more? And if no one is doing anything about accessibility, how can we start? And just really getting like a nuts and bolts plan for it. Accessibility is really important to me. And other things that you said, just like not misgendering people and having it be a welcoming environment for people from all different backgrounds to just feel like, a lot of people, when they go into the magistrate, it's not the happiest day. Like, it's not the best day for them. And to just make it feel comfortable for people to be able to go in, tell their story, help us like get to the bottom of things, is something that would be really important to me. And I'm not going to say I have all the answers right now, but it's something that I would really want to make a priority. And I've made a priority during my campaign. You know, when I had my launch, I had an ASL interpreter, and it's been a priority for me during my career. And so I would hope to just continue that. I also wanted to add that I think a part of accessibility is also letting people know their rights. What are their rights as a tenant? What are their rights as a community member? And just to not let people be glossed over or pushed around because they might not have a lawyer, or they might not have the information that they need, not just about their rights, but about the resources that are out there to help them. You know, in public health, we talk about the social determinants of health, but I really want to look at the social determinants of why someone might end up in a magistrate's office, and really have ways for people to access resources that can help them avoid getting into, you know, the kinds of situations that bring them into the magistrate's office in the first place.
Yeah, it's a very good question. You know, one thing I definitely have seen as is a popular, you know, with the community, and just has been a successful type thing, is having workshops where you have, you know, eviction workshops, you have fines and fees workshops, you have traffic workshops where you have, you know, just information sessions where the community is welcome to come and learn, you know, about the different aspects of the roles that the court is going to take, and if there are any, you know, specific things to the community, those can, you know, sort of be worked out there, and, you know, sort of expressed there, so people can have an active role in what goes on in their community and what goes on in the court. Just, you know, having monthly, bi-monthly workshops to, you know, help people know their rights, know what it is that goes on, and know how to, you know, sort of navigate the legal system, I think is a very effective method, and I hope to implement some of that in the future. But more than that, I hear a lot of really good ideas from a lot of different, you know, a lot of different people, a lot of different magistrates who are all going to be trying these things in their court. And one thing that I am looking forward to is talking with other magistrates and hopefully forming some sort of working group where we can all come together every month, every other month, and, you know, see what's worked, what hasn't worked, you know, what we can try, and if there's obviously going to be some pushback against implementing some you know, some strategies, or trying to, you know, for instance, extend hours. You know, there's always going to be someone on the other, you know, somebody on one side saying, well, you know, here's why that's not going to be a thing. So we can work together to try to come up with solutions that wouldn't necessarily be universal, but that can work for our community or for our local community. And, you know, everyone is stronger when they work together. So I think having a working group of like-minded magistrates to tackle a lot of these issues and problem solve together with input from their communities, and, you know, just sort of see how we can lift each other up, because, you know, it's all well and good if something works in my court, but shouldn't it also be working in, the courts of anyone else who wants to have access to these strategies? So I think communication with other magistrates to see where accessibility issues are for them, and if that is or isn't a thing, for anyone else, figure out ways to work together to get around that and learn from each other. Yeah.
Yes, Xander, I love that answer. When we all win our races, we'll have to get on that.
Thank you so much for that. And I have a question that we didn't send earlier today, but it just kind of came up out of the conversation. Can each of you? I guess we'll start with we'll go Leah, Xander, Holly. Could you just talk a little bit about how over the course of your tenure, how the legal community, particularly at the local level, may change. All three candidates here, you all have kind of shared your personal experiences of understanding, the legal system here in Allegheny County, have pointed out, many of the inequalities, in the system. How do you see having, potentially having three new magistrates like yourself, within the system? How can that, what type of transformational change can that bring?
Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at Allegheny County as a whole, and this is an exciting time for Allegheny County. I believe there are 50 judges at the Court of Common Pleas, and we're about to turn over 10, which is really exciting. We have so much diversity. The number of women that are on that slate right now is just incredible. We had a rally yesterday that it almost brought tears to my eyes, seeing the number of women, the number of Black women, and just the number of diverse candidates and committed candidates overall. But at the magisterial district judge level, with 3 new candidates, and I understand, and I'm listening to both Xander and Holly, about their passion and their view of the incumbent. But as I stated, there was no incumbent, in my race, but there was a person who had held that seat. He sat there for, I want to say, maybe 20 years. And our bench, from, the local to the state level to the federal level, needs to reflect the community. And I think that's what we're doing now, even looking at the 3 of us, or 3, diverse people. And when you have a bench that's diverse, that reflects the community, you have the community being more comfortable, when they walk into a courtroom. And it's, not because they believe that there's going to be favoritism or favorable treatment, but that there's going to be fair treatment. And I think, with the way our court is shifting now, again, it's so exciting to see it. I'm welcoming the time when the public at large will be more comfortable when they walk into a courtroom, and at any given time will see someone who resembles them or has something in common with them on some level. So yes, this is a very exciting time for our our local courts, and our state courts. Overall, I'm proud. I'm proud, and I'm just thankful to be here at this given time, to be part of this movement, because I think that ultimately what it results in, it's, again, my motto is justice for all, or equal justice for all, and confidence in the court system, which is, I believe, that we're moving to, that we've never had before. So it's a very exciting time.
Thank you. Xander?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And I think one of the keys to recognize is transformation, especially transformational justice, cannot and will not happen overnight. But things that can change immediately are, things that we can bring in. Every person who will come into my courtroom will be treated with the utmost respect. That's just a given. No matter who you are, what your identity, where you come from, you will be treated with the utmost respect because you're a person, and therefore you deserve respect. But also recognizing that even the small decisions that a lot of people would think of as, well, very minor to whatever case is at hand, do have these very can have very amplified impacts. For instance, if somebody were to, lose quite a lot of money and they weren't in a financially stable position to begin with, having somebody there in the courtroom who deals with evictions and people who have been, very recently evicted and knows the appeal process, knows all the good housing organizations and, the resources that are out there, having them in the courtroom or, just outside, ready to help when needed, it can mean the difference between, spending days unhoused. It could mean the difference between, having days where you're not knowing where your next meal is coming from and having some amount of security. So while we won't be able to achieve, this transformative justice immediately, having people who recognize that there are, the small things that can be done to make life easier for people, and the ability to recognize those times and, act on that is going to be very, very important in terms of just making these small changes and just making these small decisions which have big impact for the better.
Kahari, thank you for asking this question, because I'm so excited about the transformative power of these current races that we have now. Like Leah said before, there are 46 magistrates in Allegheny County, and not all the magisterial slots are open in this election. There's a handful, and before now in Allegheny County, we had one magistrate who I know of who's been talking about the things that we're talking about today. And there's probably a few, quiet magistrates out there who are, bucking the system in their own ways and being compassionate and being fair. But we're dealing with the status quo. Like, the Allegheny County Jail is full of people who don't need to be there. And it's wrong. And as magistrates, as the 46 magistrates, we can do something about it. And this election, we have to win these progressive seats this election. Like, you might not be from the West Side, you might not be from the West End, you might not be from Lawrenceville or Upper North Side, but we need to band together to win these races, because it's going to be a domino effect. That's what I want to believe. I want to believe the transformation is going to happen when we see one person step up in the first wave, and then we see 5, 6, 7 people will step up in the second wave. And then, before you know it, we've transformed Allegheny County. And listen, I'm not naive. Our system, our judicial system in the United States, it's not built for transformation. It's not built for restorative justice. But there are things that individuals can do in those seats. We talked about discretion and the ways we can create accessibility in our courtrooms, and the powers that we do have as an individual in our space and as a group, like what Xander was saying, like the things we can do together if we team together and learn from each other. I'm so excited about this. It's not just about me in my district or Leah or Xander in their districts. It's really, for me, it's about Allegheny County. I'm a Pittsburgher, born and raised. I'm living in the house that I lived in when I was a kid. I believe that in Pittsburgh, we can create a domino effect across the Rust Belt and across the country. Maybe that's just me because I'm from here, but to me, it's a lot bigger than just, of course, I want my community to be better. I want my neighborhood to be better, but my vision is so much bigger than just that.
Thank you all so much for taking this time out as we wind down from this forum. We just want to again thank you so much for taking time out of your Monday to join us. And we're going to have a couple more questions for you. Another one we didn't get to pre-send over, but right now there is a lot of focus on the judiciary, whether it's because of what's happening at the election cycle or these mass mandates, and people are very much in tune to what's going on. Kind of building off of your accessibility questions earlier, how do you think you would be ruling as judges to make sure that people understand the reasoning behind your decisions, right? Because you can make a ruling and you can say, this is my ruling, and you go with it. You can make a ruling, you can explain your ruling, you can make a ruling, and you can, file documentation to explain. It's up to you. And again, you said, you'll be training like after you win, but what are some of the things that you think magistrates should be doing that people understand the reasoning behind their decisions so they don't feel like it's a political or oppressive decision? And I'll go with Xander, Holly, Leah.
That's a very important question. I'm hesitant to answer this only because the judicial code of conduct, specifically for magistrates, prohibits me talking about how I would rule on certain cases. But that's also been extended to, talking about certain aspects of ruling. So I can't really say, well, here's how I would explain myself in my ruling. So that I'm just worried that would potentially cross the line there, and I want to be very, very careful not to break the code of conduct.
Correct. I'm not asking you to talk about how you would. I'm asking you in building off accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that magistrates could do so that people do not feel that they are being oppressed or that they're not being discriminated against based on their political beliefs? Okay.
Give me a second to think about that, because I don't want to just spit out an answer because of the first thing that pops into my head. So if you could come back to me, I'd like a minute to think about that.
Oh yes, and go to Holly and Leah.
Sure. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I think this is really important. It's something that, as a newcomer to politics and as a newcomer to somebody who's trying to be a judge, it's something that really I've thought about, and it really weighs on me, and it's very important to me. So I believe that most people in a conflict situation want to be heard. And to me, it's going to be very important to be patient, to actively listen to all of the points of view that come into my courtroom, to give people time and to ask those probing questions like, how did we get here? Not just the details of the specific moment of conflict, but what led up to it? How did we get here? When harm has been created, judges have to mediate this harm, and we have to pay attention to victims of harm. We have to, really listen and have a restorative process. I believe that most people who perpetrated harm are going to be willing to serve the consequences, like if we hear them out. And of course, there's going to be people who are not happy with the decision that I'm going to make, or that any of us are going to make as a judge. And that's something that we have to be comfortable with. But yeah, for me, the first thing, the way I would get ahead of it is to just listen to both sides and make sure that decisions that I make are that you're able to follow the logic behind it, and you're able to follow the compassion behind it. Yeah, I was going to say something else, but I forgot. So I'll leave it at that.
Miss Leah?
So the court at this level is unique because there's really no record. So if a magisterial district judge holds their decision, then the parties get it in the mail at some point, and there may not be any explanation attached to it. Personally, way back when I graduated law school, I was actually a single parent, and I moved from the place where I was living, and I had to go before the magisterial district judge because the landlord had kept my security deposit for, and for no valid reason. So I went before the magisterial district judge to get my security deposit back. I'm a single mother. I need my money, and I presented my case, and I won my case. And the magisterial district judge awarded me the security deposit. But actually, what he was supposed to do was to multiply that security deposit because that's what the law calls for. Well, he would not do that, and I showed him the law, and he would not explain to me why he would not do that and why he was not following the law. And I've kept that with me and vow that when you come into my courtroom, you're going to have your day in court. It's going to be fair, and you're going to be heard. Because when I left that courtroom, I really felt like I had not been heard, and I just didn't understand what had just happened. So I don't have a problem, when it's possible, if I'm giving a decision, if there's a question, as much as I can, and as Xander pointed out, we can't speak in specifics, but I want you to walk out of my courtroom with an understanding, so that, you again, as Holly said, you may not agree. You're not going to agree with every decision that I made, but it's my goal, to make sure that you have as much understanding as you possibly can, and that you have had, you've had your day in court. And the other thing about that is, it also, if you take that time and trying to give someone an understanding, it also cuts down on the number of cases that go downtown, which again is part of, what we do is relieving some of the burden. People who have an understanding, even if they don't agree, if they have an understanding of what happens, then, they're less likely to take it to another level, which is their right. But, sometimes, just understanding what happened is enough for them to say, okay, I get it. And I'll take this decision, and have it be as it may. But I just, again, just for my personal experience, and then also my experience in running a courtroom for 20 years, to ensure that you have your day in court, and wherever possible, if there's a question that can be answered at that time, I would have absolutely no problem doing that. I don't want to be there until 10 o'clock at night, but I've had some long days in family division, just making sure that everyone has their day in court, because that's the number one priority.
Thank you. Xander, was there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, so one thing I've been, one thing that's sort of been central to what I believe is that justice is best achieved through compromise. And our system is very much a winner-take-all kind of system. And one thing that magistrates, can do is they can mediate, and they can, sort of have the people involved resolve whatever issues they have outside of, a strict one winner, one loser type of ruling. So by encouraging everyone, encouraging everyone to, work together to sort of explore the options before a ruling has to be made, making them aware of potential consequences one way or the other, and seeing it's like, okay, here's how it could go further on down the line, tends to help people say, it's like, all right, well, we want this resolved now, so let's work together on this. And a lot of the time, that's going to save, as Leah said, trips downtown. It's going to potentially save money. And instead of having one party feel like they're the winner and one party feel like they're the loser, both parties will have worked together to build a solution. And that's going to set the groundwork for the any potential problems that arise in the future. They've already worked together once before, or they've had this experience of working together to sort of come up to an agreeable solution. So when people feel like they've been given the opportunity to work on a solution together, incorporating some of those ideas, there's a greater sense of involvement in the process.
Thank you for that. And Kahari, do you want to ask our our final illustrious question?
Sure. Yeah. Well, as we do, Miracle started a tradition with the One Hood Power Hour of always, after getting deep into the politics and the policy, to end it on a positive note. So we'll start with Leah, Holly, then Xander. And so the final question is, what is currently bringing you joy?
You said part of it, Kahari, when you did your disclaimer, when you spoke about my grandson. But I have definitely my 4 children. I'm so proud of them. I have 3 daughters and 1 son. One daughter's a graduate of Cal U, the other's a graduate of Cheney. My son is IUP business major, and my baby, who will be 18 in 2 days, she just started her education at Temple University. She's a anthropology major on a pre-med track. So even just talking about them just, brings me so much joy. So collectively, those 4, and then add in the grandson, who's the third baseman for Eastburg, just watching them grow, becoming adults, becoming productive adults. And for me, even in doing this, still being able to set an example for them to strive to go after what you want. Just brings me all the joy. I couldn't get any of them to go to Penn State or to go into law, but they're still my greatest joy.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah. And thank you for your daughter, Lonnie. She is the awesome scorebook keeper and kind of the Zen master of the dugout.
Gets it from her mama.
Nice. To continue on a theme, my 12-year-old daughter, Zinzi, brings me joy. She's in 7th grade, and she's been really a trooper through the campaign. But when I come home from knocking on doors, we are creating characters and avatars and creating stories and just going into her creative lands and creative mind. And so that is my moment of Zen when I am away from work and the campaign trail.
So this is a bit of a hard question for me. I suffer from very severe depression, battling through it, doing the things I need to do, but there's one of the things is I don't often. It's very hard for me to feel joy, but one thing that always gets me there is my dog when she's sleeping. She sometimes dreams, and in her dreams, I think she's chasing something or fighting, and she'll make these little barks, but she can't do it completely because she's asleep, and it's just this little yip, and she'll do these twitches, and it's just so, it's just very, very sweet, and she's very loving, and just having my dog around really does bring me joy.
Thank you so much for your time. I think, Xander, all us like dog parents or humans, whatever, all know what you're talking about. And like that moment, like, oh, yes, I do. Thank you all so much for taking the time out to join us. You can stop your cams and leave. We're just going to do some wrap ups again. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. And like Xander had mentioned when we were asking the questions, judicial positions are a little bit different. Even though they are political elected positions, they are apolitical positions. So candidates cannot have questions like, if you were going to rule on the mask mandates, what would you rule? If you were going to rule on an issue about landlord-tenant information, what would you rule like? If you had a defendant come in, would you look at their past practices? Would you look at their history, their IEP plans, so on and so forth? They cannot talk about specifics of a potential ruling because all of us have a constitutional right to have a judge or someone in the judiciary to rule over cases from what is perceived to be an objective point of view. So that's why some of the questions have to talk about what is in the purview of the courts, what can a judge do in their courtroom what does the law permit, and some of the ways that they could make a change going forward, not on specifics. So I know some of you did have some questions, but that's the reason why those questions were not posed. But again, if you want more information about magisterial district judges, what they can do, why it's very important for you to know about them, why it's even more important for you to vote on them, this Friday at 12:30, I will be joining ACLU Pennsylvania's Instagram Live to talk about the magisterial district judges as someone who's had to argue in front of them as a certified legal intern and has had clients go through and have various hearings in front of these judges. And so if you want more information, if you want to ask some more questions directly about what these positions can do, I invite you to tune in on Tuesday, live on Friday at 12:30, and that'll be on ACLU Pennsylvania's Instagram Live. In addition, again, we want to invite you to please register to vote if you are in the county and you believe in electoral politics and you engage in electoral politics. Please register to vote by the 18th. If you like this forum and you want more forums to continue, or if you like the work that One Hood Power is doing, please donate and support to our work. Please share these forums and subscribe to our YouTube pages. And again, we have more programming coming up. Xander talked about their mental health status, and we're very open and honest in disclosing. If you want to learn more about mental health issues, maintaining and supporting and even drawing boundaries on your own mental health, we invite you to watch our own Tilt series. It's on Thursdays at 12 p.m. That is with Julius Boatwright, CEO and therapist, and runs Still Smiling, and Mama Brown, who is a community organizer, and they focus on various aspects of mental health. We do have, as a community, a really cool announcement that we'll make tomorrow afternoon. So please make sure you're following us on all of our social media pages. And again, I'll turn it back over to you, Kari, to close us out.
Thank you for that. And again, we want to thank Xander Orenstein, Leah Williams Duncan, and Holly Hickling for joining us tonight, and also send our best to Hilary Wheatley Taylor, who was going to join us tonight, but her son was injured playing soccer this evening, so we hope he's doing well as well. And just as a quick reminder, excuse me, we're halfway through our fall candidate forum series. Our series continues next Monday. On October 4th, with the mayoral candidates. We will have State Representative A. Gainey and former city police officer Tony Moreno. And we will looking forward to a really, really great conversation next Monday. And then we'll close out with city and county council the following week. And then on October 18th, 3 weeks from tonight, we will be joined by the slate of 5 judicial candidates, 5 of the 8 candidates that we endorsed in the primary election that won their primaries. And that would be Brenna Watson, Nicola Henry Taylor, Elisa Middleman, Chelsea Wagner, and Tiffany Sizemore will be joining us for our final candidate forum. And again, I want to thank Xander Orenstein, Leah Williams Duncan, Holly Hickling, as well as Hilary Wheatley Taylor, who could not join us, but wishing her best for her son, who had an injury tonight on the soccer pitch, hoping the best for them. And Miracle, do you have anything else before we close out this evening?
Yes, you saw today we had people from various parties, Democrat and independents today. We send invites to candidates from all the parties, people who have registered to vote. People who have registered who've won their primaries. And so if you want to see us to do more expensive forms, please reach out to the candidates. If you don't see them on our flyers, if you don't see them on our social media pages, please reach out to them and ask them to respond back. We are here to have conversations. We know that our communities are not monolithic and there are different politicians that resonate with different folks. So we always want to just make that clear. And with that, again, thank you all so much for tuning in to tonight's One Hood Power Fall Forum series.
Good night.